Welcome to this explainer. We are all driven by these completely hidden biological mechanisms. I'm talking about the underlying programming that dictates our daily anxieties, our restless habits, and even massive global conflicts. Today, we are pulling back the curtain on the very architecture of human motivation. We're going to look at the structural loop that dictates why we want what we want, and why actually getting it never seems to fix that underlying itch. So, why is human desire a trap? Okay, let's dive into this. We are constantly chasing goals, right? We completely believe that the next achievement will finally bring us lasting peace. A better job, a bigger house, more followers online. But does it? Why does it always seem to leave us right back exactly where we started? To answer that, we have to look past the surface of our desires and examine the machinery running quietly in the background of our minds. Section 1. The engine of desire. Let's deconstruct the mechanism. The source material calls this underlying structural loop emotional arbitrage. It's basically a repeating four-step cycle. It starts with step 1, a perceived lack. You just feel like something is missing. That immediately triggers step 2, internal friction. And this isn't just a thought, it's a literal chemical discomfort in your body. So to fix this discomfort, you move to step 3, external seeking. You try to fix an internal chemical problem with an external action. And finally, step 4, temporary relief. Notice the word temporary. We constantly cycle through this trying to soothe an internal state by endlessly rearranging the external world. And this brings us to the illusion of the target. We chase these external symbols, right? The money, the status, the fancy titles. We treat them as objective realities. But the truth is, you don't actually crave the numbers in the bank account. What you actually want is the chemical relief from the anxiety of scarcity. You don't actually crave the corner office. You want the temporary sedation of your imposter syndrome. We are fundamentally misidentifying our own goals here, chasing external symbols when literally all we really want is internal relief. Moving right along to section 2, the dopamine treadmill. The crucial mechanism we need to understand here is hedonic adaptation. This is the biological rule that states humans will quickly return to a relatively stable baseline level of happiness, no matter what happens to them. The desire to feel good literally never ends because our biology is designed to constantly reset. The exact moment you achieve that massive goal, your baseline calibrates, the friction returns, the gap reopens. It's wild. And this is where we absolutely have to correct a massive popular misconception. Dopamine is not the molecule of satisfaction. It is the molecule of anticipation. It's the molecule of more. Dopamine is what drives you through that external seeking phase we just talked about, but it absolutely abandons you once you get the reward. The moment you attain the feeling you were chasing, dopamine drops off, and the cycle repeats. You are chemically wired to crave the chase, for sure, not the catch. So let's look at how this plays out in your daily life. Our obsession with screens is the ultimate micro-regulation tool for this biological engine. The moment a tiny micro-drop of boredom or existential dread creeps in, that internal friction, what do? We reach for the phone like a digital pacifier. We literally use it to plug a leak. We seek a quick hit of outrage or validation, or just mindless scrolling to soothe the discomfort. It is the dopamine treadmill sitting right there in the palm of your hand. Which brings us to section 3, from toddlers to tyrants. Let's zoom out to the macro scale. And this brilliantly illustrates an incredible leap when we compare two completely different extremes. On the toddler scale, a child is denied a toy in a grocery aisle. They lack the prefrontal cortex development to regulate their emotional friction, so their meltdown is a raw, unmediated expression of that chemical gap. But scale that up to geopolitics. We are dealing with global politics, warfare, and economics, yet the drivers are shockingly similar. Ego preservation, fear of loss, humiliation, and tribal dominance. We really like to think that global politics and wars are driven by hyper-rational actors carefully calculating cold, hard data. But the source text argues this is often just a front. Nations are led by individuals, and world history is largely the story of deeply insecure human beings armed with massive leverage trying to fix their own internal gaps. The exact same biological engine driving a child's meltdown is driving geopolitical dominance. It's all an attempt to soothe internal emotional friction. Now for section 4. Ancient monks called it. Let's look at some philosophical parallels. Take the first noble truth of Buddhism. It asserts that life is inherently characterized by dukkha. While that's often translated as suffering, it more accurately means unsatisfactoriness or friction. Sound familiar? The root cause is tanha, our constant craving for pleasant feelings and our aversion to unpleasant ones. This internal friction and gap is quite literally the ancient definition of dukkha. They diagnosed the dopamine treadmills centuries before we even knew what dopamine was. The Stoics viewed the exact same problem from a very similar angle. Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius argued that humans are enslaved not by external events, but by their emotional reactions to those events. They taught that letting your passions and internal frictions run your world means surrendering your sovereignty to things completely outside of your control. The external seeking we do, it's a form of enslavement. Finally, Section 5, Wired to Survive, Not Smile. Let's talk about our biological imperative. This brings us to the ultimate question. If this endless cycle of perceived lack, temporary relief, and constant friction makes us miserable, why is it so unbreakable? Why hasn't evolution engineered this out of us by now? Well, the answer is a harsh biological reality that completely shifts how we view our own minds. The reality is simply this. Evolution does not care about your long-term peace or happiness. Not even a little bit. Its only metrics for success are survival and reproduction. The gap, that chronic, restless itch making you feel like you aren't safe enough or rich enough or loved enough, is not a modern bug in your operating system. It is a perfectly functioning Paleolithic survival feature. Imagine the content hominid for a second. This ancient human is deeply at peace. They have no internal gap, no friction. They just sit happily under a tree. And what happens to them? Well, they promptly get eaten by a saber-toothed cat. Now compare them to the anxious ancestor. They have a chronic, restless itch. They always feel a little unsafe. Because of that, they gather resources, build tribes, and fight off rivals. The anxious ancestor survives. We are the direct descendants of the anxious, dissatisfied survivors. Chronic dissatisfaction was the evolutionary winning ticket. The problem we face today is that we are navigating a hyper-connected modern world using that exact same Paleolithic hardware. Our ancient brains critically misinterpret modern triggers. Your brain treats a lack of social validation on your smartphone with the same existential panic as being cast out of a tribe. It equates low screen metrics with starving in the wilderness. It's the same ancient survival hardware reacting to entirely new, fabricated stimuli. Understanding this is absolutely key to reclaiming your attention and your peace of mind. Which leaves us with this final, crucial question to ponder. Will you continue to let a Paleolithic survival loop dictate your modern peace? Now that you can see the engine of desire for what it truly is, a biological trap designed to keep you running on a treadmill, you finally have the power to step off. The next time you feel that internal friction, that sudden urge to check a screen or chase an empty status symbol, just remember, it's just ancient chemistry. You don't have to obey it. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning the mechanics of your world, and I will see you next time.